The market was alive with noise and colors, voices shouting in many alien tongues, stalls crowded with fruits that glowed, metals that shimmered, and fabrics that moved as if they were alive. Humans were rare here, but one man walked slowly between the stalls, his jacket worn, his eyes sharp. He was a stranger in this place, but he carried himself with quiet strength. The human's name was Daniel. He had come to the alien market to trade for simple supplies, food, and maybe a piece of scrap technology he could sell back on his ship. He knew aliens often gave him long stares, some with curiosity, some with dislike. But Daniel had learned to ignore it. He stopped near a stall where an alien woman stood, her features delicate, her skin faintly glowing blue under the twin suns above. She was holding a small basket of fruit when she suddenly froze. Her wide eyes lifted to something in the crowd. Daniel followed her gaze. A shadow moved between the stalls, then another. Figures in dark cloaks slipped through the crowd too fast, too sharp. Daniel's instincts screamed at him. He had been a soldier once, and he knew the smell of danger, and then the explosion tore through the market. Fire and smoke roared outward. Wood splintered, metal bent, stalls collapsed into fire. The blast threw people off their feet. Alien merchants screamed, children cried. The ground itself seemed to shake. Daniel had only one thought in that instant. The alien woman was too. Close to the blast, without thinking, he ran toward her. The fireball ripped across the air. Shards of metal and stone whistled through the smoke like arrows. Daniel grabbed the woman and pushed her down, shielding her with his own body. The shrapnel cut into his back, hot pain spreading through his muscles. He gritted his teeth, but did not move away. He held his body like a wall over hers. He felt the sting of metal piercing skin, but he kept her safe beneath him. The alien woman gasped under his weight, her voice trembling. Why are you? But Daniel did not answer. He only pressed her head down, keeping her face against the ground as the second wave of the explosion shook the market. When the fire and smoke began to fade, the market was in ruins. Stalls were burning, smoke curled up into the alien sky. Many lay crying, wounded. Some did not move at all. Daniel's breath was heavy, his back burning with pain. He rolled slowly to the side, his hands slippery with his own blood. The alien woman sat up, her glowing blue eyes wide with shock. She looked at him trembling, her hands reached for his shoulder. You saved me," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel tried to speak, but his voice came out rough. "Stay low. Find cover." But he did not have the strength to guide her further. His arms gave out, and he collapsed onto the broken stones of the market. The alien woman pressed her glowing hands against his wounds, trying desperately to stop the blood. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Don't die. Please don't die." But Daniel's eyes were already closing. The noise of the ruined market faded in his ears. The cries of survivors became distant. His world turned dark. For a moment there was silence. Only the sound of his slowing heartbeat echoed in his chest. Then light, blinding and soft, touched his eyes. He felt weightless, as though he was floating. He tried to open his eyes, and when he did, the fire and the broken market were gone. Instead, he found himself lying in a chamber made of glass and glowing walls. Strange figures surrounded him, tall, robed, their eyes sharp with curiosity. He realized he was inside some kind of alien medical pod. The figures whispered to each other in a language he did not know, but their tones carried shock. "He should not have lived," one voice said. Another replied coldly, "No human should survive that blast." Daniel's heart beat faster. He tried to move, but his body was heavy. He turned his head weakly and saw her, the same alien woman he had protected, standing at the edge of the chamber. Her glowing blue eyes shined with tears, but now also with something else. Fear. Daniel's voice was broken, weak, but he forced out words. "Where am I?" The alien woman stepped forward quickly, her hands pressing against the glass. "Safe," she whispered. "You are safe. For now." But behind her, the robed figures kept whispering, their eyes narrowing, Their voices were low, but Daniel could hear enough. He saved her life, the Queen's daughter. But if word spreads, the Council will not accept this. A human should not be part of this story. Daniel's eyes blinked, heavy with exhaustion. His vision blurred. But one thing cut through the fog. The alien woman he had saved was not just any woman. She was someone important, someone dangerous to protect. And now he realized he was surrounded, watched by aliens who did not want him alive. Daniel opened his eyes to a soft glow above him. The pain from the explosion was still there, deep in his back and arms, but now it felt distant, almost muffled. He blinked, trying to clear his vision. The ceiling above him was not made of stone or wood. It was transparent crystal, glowing with streams of light moving inside it like rivers. The air smelled sharp and clean. He realized he was lying inside a kind of medical bed, half submerged in a strange liquid that hummed faintly with energy. When he tried to move, the glass lid above him vibrated and a quiet alarm echoed in the chamber. At once, tall figures stepped closer. They were aliens, robes flowing, faces narrow and eyes glowing faint green. Their hands were long, their fingers tipped with silver bands that shimmered as they moved. Daniel's heart raced. His human instincts told him he was not safe. He had woken up in the middle of something far larger than himself. The aliens began to speak in their own tongue. The words rolled like deep echoes, but their tone was clear. Some were surprised, some angry, some almost afraid. One alien leaned close, his eyes narrowing. Impossible. A human should not have survived that explosion. Another hissed back. It is not just survival. Look at the readings. His body resisted the shrapnel far longer than expected. Daniel could not understand every word, but he understood the stares. They were watching him not as a patient but as a problem. Then a soft voice cut through the whispers. Enough. Daniel turned his head slowly. His vision cleared, and there she was. The alien woman he had shielded in the market. Her glowing blue skin seemed brighter here. Her long dark hair brushed her shoulders. Her eyes were wet with relief. She pressed a hand against the glass of his chamber. You're awake, she whispered. Her voice trembled. You saved me. I thought you would never open your eyes again. Daniel tried to speak, his throat dry. His voice came out rough. Where am I? The woman looked over her shoulder nervously before answering. You are in the inner sanctuary of the palace. Her words hit him like a stone. Palace? He had saved a stranger, but she was no ordinary citizen. The aliens around them shifted uneasily. One muttered, He knows too much already. Another answered coldly, The council must be informed. Daniel felt his pulse quicken. He had been in dangerous situations before as a soldier, but this was different. He was deep inside alien power, among people who already wished he had died. The woman leaned closer to the glass, ignoring the others. Do not be afraid. I will protect you, she said. Her voice was sincere, but Daniel could see fear hidden behind her calm tone. The aliens argued louder. He cannot stay here, one said. If the council learns a human was brought into the royal sanctuary, it will be chaos, another snapped. And yet he saved the heir. If she commands us, we cannot remove him. The words struck Daniel's ears. Heir. He looked back at the woman, his eyes narrowing. Who are you? He asked weakly. She hesitated for only a moment, then answered quietly. I am Lyra, daughter of the Queen. Daniel's chest tightened. He had not just saved an alien woman, he had saved the princess of this entire world. The chamber filled with tension. The guards at the door shifted, their weapons glimmering under the pale light. The robed healers kept whispering, their faces twisted with worry. Some wanted him gone. Some wanted him studied. None wanted him free. Daniel swallowed hard, his body heavy. His soldier's instincts screamed at him. He was trapped. Lyra seemed to sense his fear. She placed both her glowing hands on the glass and whispered, Do not lose hope, Daniel. You are safe here. With me. But before Daniel could reply, the doors at the far end of the chamber opened with a sharp sound. A wave of silence fell over the room. Every alien lowered their heads. Through the doorway walked a figure taller than all the rest. Her robe was layered with gold and silver threads that shimmered in the light. A crown of crystal rested upon her brow. Her gaze was sharp, commanding, and filled with suspicion. Daniel did not need an introduction. He knew immediately. This was the Queen. Her eyes landed on him, lying weak in the pod. Her voice was steady but heavy with judgment. So, this is the human who placed his body between death and my daughter. The chamber grew colder at her words. Every alien waited for her to decide what would happen next. Daniel tried to sit up, pain flaring through his body, but he forced himself. To meet her gaze, his voice cracked, but he spoke. I did what anyone should do. The Queen's lips curved in something between a frown and a smile. Her voice lowered. No, not anyone. Not here. Lyra turned quickly to her mother. He saved me. If not for him, I would be dead. He deserves our thanks. The Queen studied Daniel for a long moment, then finally turned her head toward her advisors. Her words cut through the chamber like a blade. Prepare him. He will be brought before the throne. There he will answer why he risked his life for my bloodline. Daniel's heart pounded. He realized he had been pulled into a storm far bigger than he could escape. He had not only saved a life, he had changed the future of a royal family, maybe even an empire. And as the guards moved closer to lift him from the pod, Daniel's mind repeated one sharp thought. Saving her might have been the easy part. Surviving what comes next may be impossible. Daniel's feet dragged against the polished stone floor as two guards led him down a long corridor. Their armor shimmered in the torchlight, their tall frames towering over him. He was still weak from his wounds, but they offered no kindness. Their grips on his arms were iron. The corridor ended in massive doors carved with strange symbols. Glowing faintly as if alive, with a deep rumble, the doors swung open. Daniel blinked as he stepped into the grand hall, the throne room of the alien queen. It was vast. Columns reaching high into the shadows, banners of silver and blue hanging like rivers of light. Hundreds of aliens stood along the walls, nobles, advisors, soldiers, and servants. All eyes turned toward him, whispering in low voices. A human? How is he alive? Unworthy of the throne's gaze. Daniel kept his chin steady. His soldiers' training guiding him, he would not show fear before so many eyes. At the far end of the hall, upon a high dais, sat the Queen. Her presence filled the chamber like a storm. She wore a robe woven with threads that shimmered like starlight, and a crown that seemed to pulse with energy. Her eyes, sharp and cold, never left Daniel as he was dragged forward. Beside her stood Lyra, the princess, the one Daniel had saved. She looked worried, her glowing blue hands clasped tightly together. Her gaze met his. And for a moment, Daniel felt strength return to his body. The guards forced him to his knees before the throne. The Queen rose slowly, her voice cutting across the silence. You are the human who shielded my daughter in the market, she said. Her tone was neither warm nor cold. It was the voice of judgment. Daniel raised his head, his voice rough but steady. Yes, the hall buzzed with whispers, some mocking, some curious. The Queen's eyes narrowed. Why? What reason did you have to throw yourself before death for one not of your kind? Daniel hesitated for a breath. Every instinct told him to give a clever answer, something that might protect him, but he chose the truth. Because she was in danger, he said simply. Because she needed someone. The hall erupted with laughter and scoffs. Nobles sneered. Foolish human, one spat. He speaks of need, as if life is so cheap. Another voice hissed. He seeks reward. He plays the hero for favor. The Queen raised her hand, and silence fell. She studied Daniel for a long time, her expression unreadable. Then she turned slightly to Lyra. And you, daughter? What say you? Lyra stepped forward, her voice strong despite the tremor in her hands. He saved me, mother, If not for him, I would have died in the fire." Her words struck the hall like a spark. Some nobles gasped, others murmured angrily. The heir owes her life to a human, unthinkable. The queen's gaze hardened. Her voice thundered, "Enough!" The walls seemed to tremble at her command. She turned back to Daniel, her tone low and sharp. "Do you ask for reward, human? Gold, land, a place in my court?" Daniel shook his head slowly, his voice quiet but clear. "I ask for nothing." Gasps filled the air. Laughter turned to silence. Nobles stared at him in disbelief. Even the guards shifted uneasily. The queen tilted her head slightly as if trying to see through him. "Nothing?" she asked, her voice softer. "You would risk your life and demand nothing in return?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "I did what I thought was right. That is all." The chamber felt colder. The nobles exchanged looks, unable to understand such an answer. For them, every act had a price, every choice a bargain. But this human spoke of nothing but duty. The queen lowered herself back onto her throne, her eyes never leaving his. "You are either a fool or something far more dangerous." Lyra stepped closer to him, her voice rising. "He is no fool. He is brave. And he is true." She turned to the nobles, her face fierce. "Would any of you have shielded me with your own body? Would any of you bleed for me without promise of reward?" The hall fell silent. No one answered. Their silence was louder than any words. The queen's lips curved slightly, though it was not quite a smile. "Perhaps my daughter speaks truth," she said. "Perhaps this human is different." But her eyes grew cold again. "Still, the council will not see it so. They already whisper. They already call for your removal. They fear what it means that my heir was saved by a human hand." Daniel felt the weight of her words. He was not only unwanted, he was dangerous to the balance of power. His very survival here had turned the palace into a nest of suspicion. The queen rose once more, her robe flowing like water. "You will remain under watch until I decide your fate," she declared. "If you are what you claim, your actions will prove it. If not, you will not live to see another dawn." Guards stepped forward, their hands on their weapons, ready to escort him away. Daniel looked once more at Lyra. Her eyes shined with determination and fear. She whispered so only he could hear, "Do not give up. I will fight for you." As the guards dragged him toward the shadows of the hall, Daniel's heart beat steady. He had stood before death before, but this was different. He had entered a battlefield without weapons, without allies, and now, surrounded by suspicion and power, he knew one thing for certain: this was only the beginning. The palace corridors were quieter at night, but the silence was heavy. The great halls that once echoed with music and noble voices now carried whispers. Shadows stretched long across the walls, lit only by flickering crystal lamps. Daniel walked slowly, escorted back to his chamber by 2 guards. His body still hurt from the explosion, but his mind was sharper than ever. He could feel eyes on him even in the dark. He was not just a guest here, he was a prisoner wrapped in suspicion. When the guards finally left him alone in a small room with stone walls and narrow windows, Daniel sat on the bed and thought. He replayed the queen's words, the stares of the nobles, the way some had laughed, some had glared, and he remembered Lyra's promise. "I will fight for you," but promises would not keep him alive if the palace wanted him dead. Hours passed. Daniel dozed lightly, his soldier's instinct keeping him half awake. Then he heard it. A sound, faint but clear. A scrape against the door, a whisper of steel. He moved silently, pressing himself against the wall beside the door, his muscles tensed, his heart steady. The lock clicked, the door creaked open, and 3 dark figures slipped inside, cloaked, masked, knives glimmering in their hands. Daniel grabbed the nearest chair and swung it hard. The first figure stumbled, crashing into the wall. The second lunged at him, knife flashing. Daniel caught the arm, twisted and slammed his elbow into the attacker's chest. Pain flared in his own wounds, but he did not let go. The third assassin moved fast, blade aimed for Daniel's back. But a sudden cry echoed in the hall. "Stop!" The assassins froze. Daniel turned his head and saw her. Lyra, standing at the doorway, her glowing hands raised, her voice shook with both fear and command. "Leave him. He is under my protection." The assassins hesitated, then one hissed. "You protect him? Then you defy the council itself." Lyra's eyes burned. "The council has no right here. This is the queen's palace, and I am her heir." But Daniel saw the danger. The assassins were not afraid of palace law. They were ready to kill. Their blades shifted again. Daniel shoved one into another, creating a brief opening. "Run!" he barked at Lyra. But she didn't move. Instead, she stepped forward, placing herself between Daniel and the attackers. Her glowing blue skin brightened, strange energy swirling around her hands. She shouted words in her language, and the walls seemed to tremble. The assassins froze for a moment, uncertain, then hissed curses before retreating into the shadows, slipping out as quickly as they had come. Silence filled the chamber again. Daniel leaned against the wall, breathing hard. His shirt was torn, blood seeping from reopened wounds. He looked at Lyra, her chest heaving, her eyes wet. "You're insane," Daniel said weakly, half smiling despite the pain. "Standing in front of blades like that, you did the same for me," she whispered back. Her hands glowed as she pressed them against his wounds, warm light spreading into his skin. The pain dulled, his breathing steadied. Daniel studied her face, serious now. "They weren't just thieves. They knew me. They came for me." Lyra nodded slowly, her lips tight. "The council fears you, Daniel. They think you are a threat to the order of our world. Some nobles believe my survival was not fate, but weakness, that a human should never have touched our bloodline." Daniel's jaw tightened. "So they want me dead?" "Yes," she whispered. "And they will not stop. Not until you are gone." Daniel sat back, silent for a moment. His soldier's mind worked quickly. He was in the middle of a palace filled with enemies, but there was something bigger happening here. The explosion in the market, the assassins in the palace, this wasn't just about him. This was about power. "Someone wanted you dead," he said finally, his eyes locking on hers. "Not me. You." Lyra froze. Her lips parted as the truth sank in. "The explosion." "It wasn't random," Daniel said. "It was a strike against you, and now that I got in the way, I'm just another loose end." Her hands trembled. "If that's true, then it means someone inside the council planned it. Maybe even someone close to my mother." The thought chilled them both. Betrayal was not just in the shadows. It was inside the highest walls of the kingdom. Daniel leaned forward, his voice low. "Then we can't trust anyone. Not the guards, not the nobles, maybe not even your advisors." Lyra's eyes shined with fear, but also with resolve. "Then we trust only each other." For a long moment, silence hung between them. The faint glow of her hands lit the dark chamber, painting them both in pale blue light. Daniel's soldier heart knew the truth. He had stepped into a war he didn't understand. But for the first time since the blast, he also knew where he stood. He would fight, not just for survival, but for her. Outside the chamber, voices whispered, again hidden footsteps retreating into the halls. In the darkness of the palace, unseen eyes carried word of what had happened. Assassins failed, the humans still lived. The princess had defied the council. The shadow of betrayal was no longer quiet. It was spreading through every corner of the palace, and the next strike would be far worse. The palace looked calm under the pale glow of the twin moons, but inside its walls, tension coiled like a snake. Guards marched in tighter groups, their armor clicking in the silence. Nobles whispered in dark corners, glancing nervously at the queen's chambers. Daniel sat near a high window in his small room, staring at the moons. His body still ached, but the pain was something he knew well. It reminded him he was alive. What worried him more were the shadows that followed him everywhere. The attack from the assassins had not been the end. It had been the beginning. He could feel it in the way the guards looked at him, in the way the palace servants went quiet when he passed. He was a threat, not just because he was human, but because he had stood between death and the princess. A knock came at the door. Daniel tensed. His hand moved to the piece of broken wood he had kept from the chair, a poor weapon but better than nothing. "It's me," came Lyra's soft voice. Daniel opened the door, and she slipped inside. Her cloak covered her glowing skin, and her eyes flicked nervously toward the corridor. "You shouldn't be here," Daniel said quietly. "Neither should you," she whispered back. Her face was pale, her voice tight. "The council is meeting tonight. They want my mother to hand you over. They say you are a danger to the crown." Daniel gave a humorless smile. "Funny, I thought the danger was the people planting bombs in your market." Her hands clenched. "I tried to speak for you, but the council only listens to itself. They claim keeping you here dishonors the throne, and some," she paused, her voice breaking, "some say it would be better if you were gone." Daniel nodded slowly. He had expected this. He was not a fool. Palaces were battlefields made of words instead of bullets. But tonight, he felt something in the air heavier than whispers. Suddenly, the sound of horns shattered the quiet night. Daniel and Lyra rushed to the window. Below, the palace courtyard erupted in chaos. Shadows moved across the walls and torches flared as guards clashed with figures in dark armor. "They're here," Lyra whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Daniel grabbed her arm. "Not assassins this time," he said grimly. "This is an attack." Before she could answer, the chamber doors burst open. 2 loyal guards stumbled in, their armor scratched. "Princess," one gasped. "They've breached the lower halls. You must get to the queen." Daniel moved quickly, snatching a fallen sword from one of the guards. Its weight was strange, but his soldier's body remembered how to hold it. "Stay behind me," he told Lyra firmly. The guards led them through narrow corridors, the sound of steel and screams growing louder with every step. Twice, masked attackers leapt from the shadows, blades flashing. Daniel fought them back with raw strength, his body burning with pain. But he did not stop. Blood sprayed across the stone floors, the air filled with smoke and the metallic stench of death. Finally, they burst into the grand hall, but instead of safety, they found more chaos. The hall was filled with nobles and servants, all gathered for what was supposed to be a feast under the moonlight. The tables were overturned, dishes shattered, and blood already stained the floor. Assassins had struck here too, blades cutting down anyone in their path. Daniel pushed Lyra behind him, raising the alien sword. A cloaked figure lunged at him. Daniel sidestepped and slashed, the blade cutting clean. The assassin fell, but more pressed forward. Through the chaos, Daniel caught sight of the queen, standing tall on the dais. Her robe was torn, her crown askew, but her eyes blazed with fury. She struck at attackers with a blade of her own, her guards forming a circle around her. "Mother," Lyra cried, breaking from Daniel's side. The queen's eyes widened as she saw her daughter. "Stay back," she shouted, but Lyra had already rushed forward. Daniel cursed under his breath and followed, cutting down another attacker who tried to intercept her. He fought like a man possessed, his wounds screaming but his arms steady. His body had been broken by shrapnel, yet still he moved. The assassins hissed to each other. "The human," one spat. "Kill him first." They came at him in a wave, blades flashing under the moonlight that streamed through the shattered windows. Daniel braced himself, his grip firm on the alien sword. His soldier's mind went cold, every movement precise, efficient. One blade cut his arm. Another grazed his side, but he did not fall. He blocked, struck, twisted, slammed, again and again, until the floor was slick beneath his boots. When the last assassin crumpled, the hall fell into silence, broken only by the cries of the wounded. Daniel stood heaving, blood dripping from his arm, his chest burned, but he was still standing. His eyes met the queen's, and for the first time, she looked at him not with suspicion, but with something close to respect. But then, one dying assassin, on the ground, laughed weakly, blood bubbling from his mouth. His last words hissed into the hall. "The council will never allow her to live. Tonight is only the beginning." And with that, he went still. The queen's face darkened. Her gaze swept the ruined hall. The dead nobles, the broken tables, the blood beneath her feet. She whispered words heavy with meaning. The council's hand is behind this? Daniel tightened his grip on the sword, his jaw clenched. He had been right. This was bigger than an explosion, bigger than whispers. This was betrayal at the highest level. He turned toward Lyra, who stood trembling but unbroken. Her eyes met his, glowing under the pale moons, and in that silent look, he made a vow. He would not let them take her, no matter the cost. The great hall still smelled of smoke and blood. The broken tables lay across the floor. Shattered glass crunched under every step, and the bodies of nobles and assassins both remained where they had fallen. The palace healers rushed to the wounded, but the air was heavy. The queen stood in silence on the dais, her crown bent, her robe torn, her guards surrounded her, but she seemed untouched by fear. Her eyes, sharp and piercing, fixed on Daniel. He stood tall despite the blood running down his arm, the alien sword still clutched in his hand. His breathing was rough, but he refused to show weakness. Finally, the queen spoke, her voice echoing through the ruined hall. "You fight like one of my own warriors," she said slowly, "and yet you are not one of us. You are human." Daniel met her gaze, his voice steady though tired. "I fight because I had to, because your daughter was in danger." The queen's eyes narrowed. "And why should that matter to you? She is not your blood, not your kind." Daniel paused for a moment, then answered with a truth simple as stone. "Because life matters, because she mattered." The hall went silent. Nobles who had survived the attack stared at him, some with disbelief, some with anger. Their whispers rose like a tide. "He speaks of life as if all life is equal." Dangerous words. He is twisting the queen's mind. The queen lifted her hand, silencing them. She stepped down from the dais, her footsteps echoing. She walked slowly toward Daniel, her presence filling the air with authority. When she stopped before him, she looked not just at the man but through him, searching for lies. "My council says you are a threat," she said coldly. "They say your presence dishonors me. That you must be removed before more blood is spilled." Daniel's jaw clenched. He did not lower his eyes. "And what do you say?" The queen studied him for a long, tense moment. Then her gaze softened, if only slightly. "I say you saved what all their armies could not. My heir." Lyra, standing nearby with blood on her cloak, stepped forward quickly. "Mother, he saved. Me not once, but twice. He fought when your guards failed. He bled when others fled. If he had not been here, I would be dead." Her voice cracked with emotion, but her eyes burned bright. "If the council demands his death, then they demand mine as well, because I will not stand by while the man who saved me is cast aside." Gasps filled the hall. Nobles recoiled at her bold words. The queen turned sharply toward her daughter. "Careful, Lyra. You do not yet understand the weight of such defiance." But Lyra did not back down. She stepped closer to Daniel, standing at his side. "I understand enough," she said firmly. "I understand that trust must be earned, and he has earned mine. Can the same be said of the council?" The queen's lips tightened. For the first time, doubt crossed her face. Whispers rose again, louder this time. Some nobles shouted, "This is madness," others hissed. "He has bewitched the princess." The queen raised her hand again, silencing the noise. Her voice thundered like a blade striking stone. "Silence! None here may speak for me." The hall froze. The queen turned back to Daniel. "You have placed me in a position no ruler should face," she said. "To choose between the demands of the council and the truth I have seen with my own eyes." She moved closer, her voice low, almost personal. "Why, human? Why risk your life again and again for a people not your own?" Daniel's eyes did not waver. His words were simple. "Because someone had to, and if no one else would, then I would." The queen stared at him, and for a long moment, the weight of centuries seemed to rest on her shoulders. Then she turned, climbing back up the dais. She stood tall once more, her voice carrying across the ruined hall. "My choice is made," she declared. "This human shall not be cast aside. He shall not be executed or exiled. He will remain under my protection, as one who has proven his worth." The hall erupted. Nobles shouted in outrage. "This is folly." The council will revolt. You endanger us all. But the queen's voice cut them down like a blade. Enough. If the council wishes war with me, then let them speak it plain. But I will not kill the man who saved my bloodline, nor will I bow to fear disguised as wisdom. Lyra exhaled in relief, her shoulders trembling. She glanced at Daniel, her eyes shining with gratitude. But Daniel only tightened his grip on the sword. He knew what the queen's choice meant. It was not safety. It was war. The council would not accept this decision. The whispers of betrayal would turn into blades. The shadows would grow darker, and now he was no longer just a survivor of an explosion, no longer just a stranger in a strange palace. He was a piece on the board of power, a symbol of defiance against the council itself. He looked at the queen, at Lyra, at the nobles glaring with hatred, and he thought one grim truth. The storm was coming, and it would not spare anyone. The queen's words still echoed in the ruined hall. This human shall not be cast aside. Outside, the night was quiet, but Daniel knew it was the kind of silence that came before a storm. Hours later, horns rang through the palace walls. Their sound was sharp, urgent. A guard burst into Daniel's chamber, his armor scratched, his face pale. The council has moved, he gasped. Their armies marched toward the palace. Daniel's body stiffened. His wounds still burned from the last battle, but he did not let it slow him. He had fought wars before. He knew the sound of soldiers gathering outside the gates. Lyra rushed in moments later, her cloak flying behind. Her face glowed with fear, but also with fire. They mean to take the throne, Daniel. They will kill my mother, they will kill me, and they will kill you first. Daniel stood, gripping the alien sword he had claimed during the feast. Then we stand, he said simply. The palace courtyards were alive with chaos. Soldiers loyal to the queen scrambled into formation, banners of silver and blue rising into the moonlight. But beyond the walls, the council's army advanced, torches like rivers of fire stretching into the night. The queen herself stood at the top of the palace steps, her crown straight once more, her presence unshaken. Her voice rang out across her soldiers. Tonight, the council dares to strike at the throne. They call this justice, but it is treason. Will you let them take what is ours? Her soldiers roared back, their voices shaking the night. Daniel stood among them, taller than most, the strange alien sword glinting in his hand. He was an outsider here, a human in the heart of an alien war. Yet as he looked around, he felt something strange. Some of the guards who once doubted him now met his gaze with respect. You fight with us, one said, his voice firm. Then you are one of us. The gates shuddered as the first strike hit them. Siege weapons pounded. Arrows flew. The council's army pushed forward, chanting war cries. Daniel's soldier instincts took over. Form tighter lines. He barked. His voice carried, sharp and commanding. The alien guards obeyed without hesitation, moving into stronger ranks. When the gates finally cracked open, the flood began. Council soldiers poured in, armored and armed, blades flashing under. The moons, Daniel was the first to meet them. His sword clashed against theirs, sparks flying. He fought with the strength of a man who had nothing left to lose. His wounds screamed, but his heart did not waver. Beside him, Lyra moved with glowing hands, striking enemies back with bursts of strange energy. Her power was raw, untrained, but it kept the line from breaking. Stay close, Daniel shouted to her, cutting down another soldier. His boot slipped in blood, but he did not fall. The battle raged through the courtyard, steel against steel, cries of pain echoing into the night. The queen's loyal guards pushed hard, but the council's numbers were overwhelming. For every enemy that fell, two more surged forward. A heavy soldier slammed into Daniel, driving him to the ground, the alien's blade raised high. But before it could fall, Lyra screamed. Her hands burst with blinding blue light. Throwing the attacker back across the stones, Daniel pushed himself up, blood on his lips. He gave her a sharp nod. Good work, he muttered, and swung his sword again. The queen herself joined the fight, her golden blade flashing. Her presence was like a beacon, her soldiers rallying around her. For the throne, they cried, their voices rising over the clash of war. But the enemy pressed harder, step by step, closer to the queen and her daughter. Daniel saw it, saw the danger before anyone else. A group of elite assassins slipped through the chaos, their eyes locked on Lyra. Without hesitation, he moved, throwing himself into their path. The assassins struck fast, blades cutting his skin. He blocked one, then another, but the third cut deep across his side. Pain flared white, but Daniel refused to fall. He roared, slamming his sword into one assassin's chest, kicking another back. His vision blurred, but his body refused to give. "In Daniel!" Lyra screamed, rushing to his side. He staggered but kept fighting, his arms heavy, his wounds pouring blood. He felt death's shadow close, yet still he moved, still he struck. The assassins hesitated, shock in their eyes. "How? Does he still stand?" one gasped. Daniel spat blood, his voice like iron. "Because I'm human." With a final surge, he cut down the last of them. His knees almost gave way, but he forced himself upright, planting his sword in the ground. His chest heaved, his vision swam, but he stood tall. The queen turned in time to see him, bloodied, broken, yet unyielding. Her eyes widened, and for the first time she whispered, not in command, but in awe. "Unbreakable." The council's army faltered then. Their push slowed, their shouts weakened. They saw a human, fragile, mortal, wounded, still refusing to fall, and it broke something in their hearts. The queen's soldiers rallied, pushing the enemy back with renewed strength. The courtyard shook with their roar, "For the throne, for the queen." The council's army began to retreat, their torches scattering into the night. At last, silence returned, broken only by the groans of the wounded. Daniel leaned heavily on his sword, blood dripping down his arm. Lyra rushed to him, holding him, up tears streaming down her glowing face. "You saved me again," she whispered. "You saved us all." Daniel gave a faint smile, his voice rough. "Not saved, just bought us time." The queen stepped forward, her crown gleaming in the pale moonlight. She looked at Daniel with something she had never shown before, respect, even admiration. Her voice was solemn. "The council will come again, but tonight, you stood where others would have fallen. You are no longer just a human, you are our shield." Daniel's knees almost gave way, but he held himself upright. His gaze moved from the queen to Lyra, and in their eyes, he saw the truth. He had stepped into their world by accident, but tonight, by his stand, he had become part of it.